everybody. We're going to be continuing with the next Mishnah as soon as I find it, which is again Masach Hashana, Perek Bet, Mishnah Hey. We'll just be doing one Mishnah, sort of standalone. Mishnah begins as follows: Chatzer Gdola Hayta b'Yerushalayim. There was a large chatzer, a large courtyard in Yerushalayim. Ubeit Ya'azek Hayta Nikri, and the name of this courtyard was Beit Ya'azek. Okay, so that's where that was one area set aside in Yerushalayim. What was it set aside for? Ulisham kol ha'edim mitkansim. We've been studying about the process of edim, witnesses coming to Beit Din. So this is the area where the witnesses would enter, where they would all come. What would happen when the witnesses would come to this area? Ubeit din, bodkin otam sham. Beit Din would check them. Check them is the wrong word. Bodik literally means to check, but they would speak to them. They would question them. They would discuss with them what in fact they saw when they're claiming that now they're coming, and that they saw the new moon and it's Rosh Chodesh. What exactly did they see? So that's the area where all the witnesses would come to, and that's where Beit Din would come to meet the witnesses and to in fact inquire whether or not what they saw was valid to make them witnesses and to declare Rosh Chodesh for the new month. The next, following this Mishnah, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to discuss exactly what they would ask them, what sort of questions they would ask them. But now we're discussing the Eidim themselves. So they would come to this place, and that's where they would be checked. When they were in this place of Beit Yazek, Usu'udot Gedolot Osin Lahem, they would make large meals for them. They would make sure they were very comfortable. There was plenty of food. Su'udot Gedolot, large meals. Bishvil Sheyehu Rigilin Lavo, in order that they should be Ragil, they should be comfortable. It should be normal for them to come. Otherwise, someone would say, something, I saw the moon, but it's tough, especially learn soon if it was Shabbat. They wouldn't want to come on Shabbat to leave their family to go to a place where there's not food, it's not comfortable. Why would you do that? Let someone else go, and someone else will go and say they saw the new moon. If I saw it, certainly someone else saw it, right? So they wouldn't do that. But if you make it a comfortable place where there's plenty of food, so people are more likely to be willing to come. So therefore, they'd have this designated area, and in that area, they would have food, large meals. That way, people would be comfortable coming. Barishona, in the beginning, lo hayu zazin misham kol hayom. So originally, the halacha would be that when they would get there, if they would come on Shabbat, then they would have to stay in that Beit Yazek, in that area, in that courtyard, the entire day. Why is that so? Well, the halacha is that on Shabbat, one is supposed to stay within one's tchum being 2,000 amot, in the area where a person begins Shabbat. So if a person is in a certain city on Shabbat, they're supposed to stay within 2,000 amot surrounding that city on Shabbat. That's known as Tchum Shabbat. An important halacha if anyone's traveling a long distance, going for a long walk on Shabbat, to know whether or not to make sure they don't leave their Tchum. They can't leave a 2,000 amot around the area where they are on Shabbat. Normally, where we live within populated areas, so we don't have that issue because we're in a populated area, so we don't go into our Tchum at all. We don't leave the Tchum at all. We don't come close to it. But if a person would be traveling in an area that's not populated, in an open field or perhaps a highway or something like that, so that could be an issue of Tchum Shabbat. So here, these people would travel long distances. They show up in Beit Din. Sometimes they show up on Shabbat. They had left their Tchum, that they were allowed to do in certain circumstances, to violate Shabbat, to leave their Tchum to come. But once they did come, though, then they were stuck. They came, they testified. So now they can't go back because they can't. They already left their Tchum. So where are they allowed to travel? So normally the halacha would be that they're only allowed to stay within the chatzer where they are. They couldn't leave that chatzer, that area, at all. So at the beginning, that was halacha. Lo yuzazim nisham kolim. They would stay there all day because they couldn't leave. They'd already left their Tchum. Once you leave your Tchum, even though they were allowed to leave their Tchum to testify, once they did so, now they already testified, they can't go anywhere else. But then Hitkin and Gamliel made a takana, and we're learning from the previous Mishnah a lot of different takanot. So he made a takana, shayu mahalchin alpayim amal chol ruach. No, he would allow them to walk in every direction 2,000 amot. Why? Well, similar to what we learned before, we would be nervous if these edim aren't going to be comfortable where they are, then they're not going to come at all. If they're not going to come at all, we're not going to know when the month is supposed to be. And therefore, part and parcel of violating Shabbat to come to this Chatzer also means that once they're there, they're allowed to walk within 2,000 amot. Otherwise, they're not going to come, and we're not going to be able to know when Rosh Chodesh is supposed to be. So therefore, when Gamliel made this takana, that not only can they come, but even after they come, and they should be stuck in that area, they're able still to travel 2,000 amot, because otherwise they wouldn't come. Similar cases, Mishnah has very interesting cases where we'll allow someone to leave their tchum after they violated Shabbat for a reason that was permitted, but even after that reason for violating Shabbat no longer applies. Let's see the examples. Lo elu bilvad, not only this case, lo elu bilvad, not these only, not only the case of the witnesses in Beit Din, ela afa chachama haba liyalid, even a wise woman, a midwife, chachama refers to a midwife, who comes to birth a child. So when she comes to help a woman deliver a baby, so when she comes, that's of course mutar completely. It's pikuach nefesh. It's a situation which is the life depends on it. The woman needs her help to deliver the baby for the health of the mother of the child. Certainly that's okay. But again, what we're saying here is not only is she allowed to come, but even after she arrives, she's allowed to then travel 2,000 amot afterwards around her tchum, because otherwise we're afraid that this midwife is not going to come. Similarly, someone who comes to save someone from a fire, so there's a fire somewhere, someone travels to get there, absolutely a mitzvah to do on Shabbat, doesn't matter what you're violating to save a life. But even afterwards, you would be allowed to travel, because we want to encourage you to make sure that you do it, and you don't negate your obligation to do it and say, yeah, someone else will save them, maybe it's not so dangerous. You're more likely to think that if for you it's a bigger burden. But if we lighten the burden on you, and even after you save the person's life, and the reason for violating Shabbat is gone, we still allow you to travel 2,000 amot, you're more likely to do it in the first place. So therefore we'd allow, again, this midwife to come to help deliver the baby, someone to come from a fire, hagayis, also to save from an attacking army, hanahar, from a flooding river, hamapolet, from a collapsing building. All these cases, someone comes and tells you that this person needs to be saved for whatever, any of the reasons listed in the Mishna. So you go, you rush, you drop everything, and you save them, even if it means traveling outside of your tchum. Once you've already saved them, the danger is gone. In theory, you should be stuck where you are because you left your tchum. You can't travel more in that area, and the danger is gone. There, the Chacham come along and said, no, we're going to allow you to travel around those 2,000 amot in that area. That otherwise, we're afraid when someone comes and says that, oh, there's a dangerous situation, come quickly. You'll say, there's probably someone else who could take care of it, or maybe it's probably not as dangerous as you think, or I probably can't save them. But you're less likely to take it as seriously if there's more of a danger of a burden placed upon you. So therefore, we lighten the burden by allowing you to go these 2,000 amot. So the Mishnah concludes, Harei elu ka'anshe ha'ir. Once they come to a new city, Harei elu, these are considered like anshe ha'ir, like the people of that city. Yeshlam alpayim amal l'chol ruach, and they can travel 2,000 amot in all directions. So just like the witness who comes to Beit Din is allowed to travel from Beit Ya'akan, from that courtyard where he would come to, Beit Yazik, the courtyard he would come to, 2,000 amot. Also, all of these situations where we allow you to violate Shabbat, after the reason for violating Shabbat is gone, you still have your 2,000 amot with which you can travel on Shabbat.